Hal, stop messing around with your camera. You're gonna give the
I'm
audience
almost
motion
done.
sickness.
I'm almost done. Sorry, guys. The cameras aren't. Sorry, the guitars aren't leaving.
You're literally the only one that gives a shit.
This is. It's a brand new webcam, all right?
This is why we never make any content. It takes like 4 hours to get stuff set up. Are we ready now?
I'm ready. I've been ready for 54 minutes.
Just a little more.
Hal, take your hands, sit on them, and stop touching things.
Do you want to go? Should I start us off and introduce everyone, or do you want to do that? Or do you want to at least respond to that?
All right, Hal, introduce us because you appear to have some energy and direction, and let's roll.
Cool. We're going?
Yes, go.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Hello, everyone. We are here today just to do a little bit of a video about the Masters Championship, which has had some changes recently. I'm here with Vanguard, a 3-time Masters champion, Jewel, current and 4-time Masters champion, and also a new content creator in the Spellweaver community. You might have seen a couple of his videos.
Start it over. You named the wrong teammate. You don't have Jewel here. You have Wildblade here.
I didn't say Cruel.
No, you said
no.
Duel,
You said Dual,
who used to be on our team.
What?
Which isn't. Yeah.
Just say it again. You have the wrong people.
Wildblade, 4-time champion. Who I wrecked recently.
Some team leader.
So I start again. Hey guys,
Yeah.
We're here to talk about Masters Championship. I have with me Vanguard, 3-time champion, 4-time champion. What was his name again? I forgot. Wildblade. Yeah. We have here with us, and current champion as well. We have also with us a content creator who's just started doing some videos for Spellweaver, and we appreciate him coming and doing that. So welcome to you, Spithead. It's great to have you here.
I like that. I like that build up of intro, like this champion, this chip in, and then we got this guy with.
Well, I'd save the best for last because these just got 2 guys suck.
Yeah, I mean, like you're apparently the only one that has mastered computers, so.
You've also won as many championships as Kingsley Hall has, so congratulations.
Well, yes, actually, you've got one of mine, Nate, but that's the story for later in the video. So anyway, we wanted to sort of I guess when I remember when I started that I saw Masters and I sort of didn't really engage with it or know much about it because it was a bit intimidating to me. I did know of the sort of pro or veteran players, but I was scared the hell of by them and didn't want to talk to them. And I guess I'm just wondering that from a new player's perspective, what is sort of their sort of view towards Masters? Is there sort of a barrier there still? And if so, what would you say it is? What the reason for it?
It's interesting because I usually with online or digital card games, it takes me a long time to warm up or get the I'm not sure the word of it, but to
get the hang of it.
Muster up the courage to get into the tournament scene and stuff like that. When I played Pokemon Online, it took a while until I finally started doing like the starter deck tournaments because I was like, well, I feel more balanced here because my biggest weakness is deck building and stuff like that. So I think the biggest barrier, especially for new players coming in, is that sort of deck building aspect. Because I know, like me, if you guys, if anyone watched the 2 videos we put out, you would notice that I very quickly grabbed hold of a Sprout and was like, I need to build a deck around that right now. I have no frame of reference though of like power
Right.
levels or anything, or and then like I assume it's not good and stuff like that. But so there's
So
that sort of
pay attention to the key words is the lesson, and the tribes that because what it was you didn't put any shamans in the totem decks by shamans, right? Yeah.
Well, I had shaman in there. I think I only had one or two, and because I hadn't
That's like
realized until after the fact that the this one that produces two sprout is triggered by shaman as well. I thought it was only the other one, so that was me just getting super excited about seeing something that generated tree spout and just throwing it in there. But
out of curiosity, how many totems did you put in?
a playset.
For that 2 out of 60 chance that they'll activate.
Yeah, that's that slow. You probably there's no videos, but there was a slow realization when I played it and read it, and I was like, oh no. It'll be really cool if I come across a shaman and these will all just trigger, but until then I'm just stockpiling these off to the side of the board, I guess. I just didn't tell Oscar that because I didn't want him to take advantage of that and keep him scared of it. But yeah, no, I think it's trying to understand the power levels and deck building, because if you go and you look at a tournament scene or like at the previous Masters, you have no like frame of reference really outside of like I could copy paste that, but I don't understand why this is good and stuff like that. So I think that's really on the barrier, which obviously is solved by just doing the daily tournaments and stuff like that to jump into that, I would assume. But I'm not sure like if the meta levels vary depending on the size or type of tournament and stuff like that.
It does quite a bit. So like the daily tournaments that you mentioned, those are typically quite a bit easier, because that's where a lot of people, the newer players, obviously they don't have complete collections, they don't have top tier decks, they play in those. And then like when Nate or I or Hal play in one of those, we've usually got a new deck idea that we're testing, something that we're refining. We're not taking a master's ready deck into that, because if we have a master's ready deck, we're going to sit on it. We don't want to tip our hand before masters. And if we don't have a master's ready deck, we're working on getting one. So you can have a lot of success pretty early in those daily tournaments. That's where I started out with pretty much just the starter cards and the cards from the campaign, and you can do quite well in there. The other thing, if your concern is deck building, the Spellweaver Discord is actually fairly active. We've got a number of old hands that are just loitering around there because we have no lives. So if you toss a deck in there,
well, no one has a live right now. So to be fair,
but
there's actually I just want to point out there's actually a channel there called New Player Advocates with a list of guys who you can add, and I mean, yeah, everyone in the community is really like quite helpful. Like, I mean, you'll be unlucky if you run into a guy who tells you to piss off. But what was that? What was a little head bubble, Nate?
It's true.
What does that even mean?
The point I was making is that if you either just toss a deck list into the Discord, people will be happy to critique it. Or if you just go, hey, I have these cool cards, I'd like to make a deck in these colors, give me ideas, pointers, you'll get suggestions. People will point out, you could build this type of thing or that type of thing with it. Or they'll tell you, that's a really crappy combo, don't waste your time.
You may want to apply a filter to some of those comments, because you will get spammed with ideas from the times I've seen people post decks, and everyone's got a different one. But yeah, I think, well, just as an alternative way of what Jules said, just sort of knowing the list of players who've literally put themselves out there to be like, hey, I want to help the new players, like, and all of those guys as well. Like, I've seen the list; those guys all know how to play and build decks, so you're gonna guaranteed get good feedback and not all over the place. That's what I do anyway. But yeah, so we'll move away from deck building, because I know that is a challenge. But Conquest as a format is a lot more complicated than the normal single game format. and that's why we love it so much. But approaching it, can be difficult, because I know that when you start off, you sort of build your first deck, and then you get comfortable with that, and then maybe another one. When you see a Conquest tournament coming up, you sort of like, can I put 3 decks together even, let alone thinking about the sort of other intricate, deeper strategies that you can go into it, which we'll talk about later. So, I mean, is there any part of the Conquest format that's most confusing, or maybe that we can clear up to sort of like clear the way for you?
Well, first, what's a brief summary of the Conquest format?
Okay, so you put in 3 decks, and we'll let Jewel do it. Jewel's the current Conquest king, so
Oh.
All
take
right.
it away.
Now, firstly, I need to point out again, I am not Duel. I am Wild. And you are
No,
terrible.
that wasn't a mistake. Jewel is the Conquest king, yeah, but we've just got Wildblade here, so
Hal,
guess
you're a
it's
terrible
bullshit.
person. Just go play it angry. So how Conquest works is you'll ready up 3 decks, and you're across those 3 decks. You can't have more than a play set of any given card. So if you use 4 of a card in one deck, you can't use that card in a different deck. Then your opponent will also have readied up 3 decks. You'll each ban 1 deck that you don't want to play that deck. He can't use it. So you're each left with 2 decks. Then it's you play the first to 2 wins, but the caveat is once you win with a deck, you can't use it anymore. So the other way to think of it is you're going to play until one of you has won a game with both of your remaining decks. And then so you can have either a 2-0 or a 2-1 score, and then whoever wins moves on, and whoever loses does not.
So basically a best of 3, but you get to you get the ban phase. So get rid of their deck that you don't want to verse, and they get to do the same. And yeah, that's a more simple way to sort of look at it. And then there's a whole bunch of other stuff which Wildblade started to go into there, but might be a little bit too much to sort of digest immediately, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, so approaching that, like my first thought as a player would be like, okay, so I feel like in my head, the best strategy to go, obviously, is probably, you can tell me how wrong this is or why, is to make 3 decks. Like say I really like Burn Rush type of deck. I assume that's something in Spellweaver.
Yes.
Would my thought in my head is, okay, I'll just make 3 variants of a Burn Rush deck. That way, no matter what they ban, I've got a version of it. But I mean, with the playset limitation, I assume that hurts it pretty bad. But I'm not sure how big a pool of cards you have to pull from and stuff like that. But so is it like all of one type, 3 different types, or 2 of one type and 1 of a different type? Like, is there even a go-to for that?
Sure. Nate, do you want to take that?
Sure, I think there are a few viable strategies. One is to think about what sort of deck you want to beat. So if you want to prey on control decks, for instance, your 3 burn deck strategy works well. That's because in a Conquest format, you can drop a game almost intentionally. You don't have to, but
I feel like we're just
Yeah.
I feel like we're blowing past the issue that you can only have 4 copies across the
Sure.
3 decks.
Sure. So yeah,
we should address that first. Yeah.
well,
that was
so
his
as
main
I
question.
understood the question, and correct me if I'm wrong here, that it would be like, can I play 3 really fast rush decks? Is that the question, or
Yeah.
is it something different?
Yeah, basically all within the same or
Not within
adjacent
the
as
same
far as
color.
play style.
Yeah, you're probably going to do it within different colors, like, but you can have 3 of them. And I think over the history of Masters, there have been players who have won the whole tournament playing that style. And if you play that style, you're really hoping that you can, when you see what your opponent is playing, ban their best mid-range deck, the best deck against really fast rush decks, and that hopefully they're playing something pretty slow. And if they're playing just one thing pretty slow, you can rush both of your rush decks underneath their 1 rush deck. Even if they have 2 good mid-range decks and just 1 really slow deck, you might be able to still win the match 2-1. So that's one viable approach, to think about what you're going to target. Another approach is to think about what you're going to ban. So in the Conquest format, for instance, you can ban a really powerful card, and imagine what would the meta look like if that card didn't exist in the game. Uh, in the past, the most typical card that folks have banned is New Horizons, which is a ramp card. And if you think about what would the best decks be if New Horizons just didn't exist, those often end up being really good Conquest decks, because you can usually figure out which deck does my opponent have New Horizons in and ban that deck. Another viable strategy is just to play the 3 best decks that you have and ban whatever your opponent's best deck is, and go head to head based on what you have and what they have. And I think all of those over the history of Spellweaver have had success. Hall has referenced Duel a few times, who is not on here, but also has won 4 times. Duel won, I think, all 4 of his championships. Yeah, I think he won all 4 of his championships by banning New Horizons. Wildblade, on the other hand, so he was targeting the aggro decks. The idea of getting rid of the best ramp card in the game is then you can build 3 decks that can reliably beat the fastest rush decks.
Yeah.
Wildblade does the opposite typically, although not every time. Wildblade, you can talk about the difference. Wildblade has tended to ban the best rush card in the game, which used to be Fireball, just a straight up burn spell to the face. And by banning the best rush deck, Wildblade has been able to build some really greedy control decks that then have beat the other people's control decks that were teched a little bit more against aggro. Yeah. That might be a little bit too detailed, but I think your general thinking is on the right track.
Yeah, there's a really interesting point that I think segues from this, and it's playing to what you know, or what, I mean, players tend to have a certain archetype, like mid-range, aggro, or control that they're either enjoy more or just are better at. And I mean, Jill was, always quite humble about his wins. He always said that he was very lucky that it was an aggro dominant meta for so long when he was playing, because he was so, he said he was really just good at making control decks, or sort of decks that walk the line between mid-range control and just creature hate. So that really suited him. Whereas Wildblade's very different. He's extremely control focused, and he'll admit it himself. Not that he can't play the archetypes, he's just very, very good at control. And because we've had sort of control metas, or I think we even had a little bit of mid-range for a bit, which gets wrecked by control, that's given him a bit of an edge. So I think that you should play to your strength. And I mean, we've got 2 guys with 4 champions there to prove that. And Nate just rushed his face and got his 3. So no, Nate's not around.
And Hal flails around like he doesn't know what he's doing and has 0.
I mean, that's it.
It's time to press stop now. Yeah.
So let's talk about qualifying for Masters. So there's the ladder, which you'll all see if you've logged into the game, is that it used to be just the top 10 would get a ticket. And then there's also golden tickets given prior to the end of the rating race, when the top 10 is decided, from the qualifier tournaments. So basically, during the week, there are silver ticket tournaments, which are single game format. It's just like Swiss format, So if you place in top 4 of those, you get a silver ticket. And that gives you a ticket to the qualifier, which is a Conquest format, at the end of the week. And if you place in the top 2 of that, you've got a ticket to Masters. So you don't need to grind a ladder necessarily if that's not your thing to get to Masters. But then the other route is just by getting top 10. Now that Masters has changed and they've rolled each month into 2, or the 1 month into 2, and increase the prize money. Basically, I think we've got
it's
2
top 8 each month qualify, so that's 16 tickets, and then there's another 8 from the qualifier tournaments, so a total of 24 qualify for the Masters that's held every 2 months.
Right.
And
Okay.
that sounds a whole lot more complicated and a lot harder than it really is. Getting silver tickets is very, very easy. Those are almost show up to the tournament and you get it level easy. Those are not hard to pick up.
There are some like I think it needs 4 to fire, and there's just like that last 4th person will join in the last minute, and like everybody's going to the qualifier.
Yep. And the golden qualifiers themselves, those the ones early in the month can be a little bit difficult because everybody's trying to get their ticket. But especially once you're in the second month, so you've had a full month of qualifiers and a month of ladder tickets given out. A lot of the stronger players already have their golden, so they cannot compete in those tournaments anymore. So those are a very good opportunity for newer players to try and qualify, and you're not going to get blown out of the water, even if you don't make it. So it's a good learning experience. And then even ladder, top 8 in 1 of 2 months is a lot easier to do than it sounds like. So I guess the point I'm trying to make is, don't hear about, you got to be top 8 or win a qualifier and get discouraged. Hear about that and give it a shot and see what you can do, and it'll be easier than you think.
Yeah, and don't think you have to dedicate your life to the game. All 3 of us here have careers, did before Corona craziness. Like we have lives.
And you see, Hal can qualify even though he can't count to 4 and realize that there are in fact 4 of us on this call.
Well, I was referring to those of us who qualified to Masters.
I just saw an opportunity to take a dig and I took it.
Failed, but anyway, continuing. So, what was I saying before Jules said something dumb? Yeah, so qualifying for Masters, right. I'm just gonna stop what I was saying. I'm gonna say that just join the silver tickets. I want to reiterate that. Like, just join a silver ticket. I remember the first time I got a silver ticket, I came like 3rd, like just behind Cruel Tech, and that was the moment I decided I was gonna try and become a competitive player. But just there's a bit of gratification of getting that silver ticket the first time. Never again afterwards, but the first one. So just try it out, just see how it feels, and then we may have a new competitive player. And
the game, I mean, it is definitely been one of the easiest digital games for me to pick up, where I'm able to figure out relatively what's going on and how to play it and stuff like that. So I can definitely see how tournaments might be a little bit more easily accessible inside of Spellweaver versus other games and stuff like that. And especially, like you're saying, if you're like a new player that goes to one of these tournaments and is able to somehow get a silver ticket, that's a huge confidence boost. It would be for me, I should say.
It was, yeah. I mean, it was for me, and I don't know. How did you guys feel about your first silver tickets?
I don't think I ever got one. I don't remember.
Yeah.
I always did ladder.
Nate still hasn't had a silver ticket.
I think I qualified by ladder before I had a silver ticket.
Yeah, so you guys are the grinder types. But not everyone's like that. However, if you are a grinder type, I do always want to say this to new players: you have Kickstarter elo for your first 50 ranked games. So don't go on ranked until you feel like you've got a deck that's strong and a good grasp of it, because you really want to make the most of that Kickstarter elo. You can play. Wasn't there a guy who played like 25 games with like 25 wins and was like first on ladder one time?
That did happen. My view of this is the complete opposite of Hall's, though. I just think you learn whether you win or lose. You get better by playing the game. Just play the ranked ladder and.
No, I don't mean like try and master the game first. I just mean get a little comfortable first.
Sure.
Don't jump in straight away. Yeah.
And to further what Nate said, the ELO system is very forgiving to the guy that's coming from behind. So, even if you play, 100 games in ranked and you lose all 100 of them because you're learning the game, then when you start winning, it's going to bring you back up quickly because you've tanked your ELO so low that, every win is going to be worth 40, 50 points until you bring yourself back up towards the pack. So,
Not
as you're learning the game, and if you see just minus after minus and then the ELO, don't worry about it. As soon as you get yourself figured out, you'll earn that all that back far quicker than you lost it.
Yeah, for sure. Not to mention the first 50 games, the Kickstarter ELO makes it impossible to actually lose ratings. So you can lose your first 50 games and continue to climb. So that's that.
Is going into because you had mentioned back with Conquer, like you go and look at decks and instaban a deck that has a card and stuff like that, and when going into tournaments or like Conquer and stuff like that, is something does this game have something where like people should go in and be like, oh, I hope I don't go against one of these meta decks that 90% of people are going, or something like that? Or is it pretty, at least at the lower level before Masters and stuff like that, is it pretty sort of a hodgepodge of stuff, so you can sort of go in with anything and hope to have that rogue deck success?
I'm gonna say something.
It's a hodgepodge.
Yeah, go ahead, Wildblade.
Okay. Yeah, in the not Masters tournaments, you're gonna meet a mess of decks. As I said, you'll get some advanced players that are experimenting, they're trying stuff out, seeing how it works, and then you're gonna get a whole bunch of other people that are just running whatever random deck they feel like. You're not gonna yeah, there will be maybe one or two guys that are trying hard and running a really optimized deck, but that's kind of uncommon. So most tournaments, run whatever deck you feel like, and if it's a decent deck, you'll do fine.
Never ever feel like you don't have a shot. Ever. Moving on next, something for the veterans. Should we talk? How long has it been now since Masters #1?
Over 3 years.
I think it was 2016. I think this might be the 4th year.
Yeah, it's been over 3 years since I won a championship, and that was number 10. So yeah, it's been almost 4 years.
Yeah, before my time. I've only been doing Masters for about a year.
I've got Comsiant's spreadsheet here. How many Masters have there been? Jesus.
47, 46, I don't know. There have been a lot. Divide that by 12. It's almost 4 years.
I think.
Yeah, this will be the 46. Yeah. So
and we ran 45 twice.
We'll stop there before I say.
Yeah, let's not go into that.
Yeah. Okay. Someone take over. No. Okay, so like Cruel Tech here, at the very top of the list, most Masters points ever, has been playing since Masters 1. He's played in 31 of the 46 Masters. And there was a hilarious Cruel Tech curse which was going on all this time. I think it was like not until his actual like 29th or appearance or something that he won. Now this isn't so funny anymore because I'm at 25 appearances without one. So I've got 4 more shots before I'm the new Cruel Tech.
It's true.
And Larissi as well is very close to being the new Cruel Tech.
And isn't Dobby up there as well?
Dobby, yeah. So Debrizzi and Larissi are from another competitive team, Meme Reactor. Dobby is better than Vanguard according to points. He has 32 total points and he has not won a title. Yeah, and he's only had 19. He's had 19 appearances. That's quite a lot. Yeah. So me, Dobby, and Larissi are sucking bags of dicks, and it's just a race to see who can suck the least amount of bags of dicks before it's all said and done. Anyone want to place bets?
No,
Oh,
I don't.
you're gonna finish last.
Goodness.
Dobby and Larice will both get a championship before you do.
I appreciate the confidence from my teammates. It's just
Totally.
It's so uplifting.
I'll have confidence in you when you can remember my name.
I think the safest bet is that I will not play.
Why couldn't we get Jewel for this?
And yeah, I have no idea what to expect for the tournament. I would, for a new player, the first time I qualified, I had never even played a Conquest tournament. So I had a golden ticket, and I was still like, well, maybe I shouldn't play Masters. And we had to do a tour of the hospital because my wife was pregnant, and it was the morning of Masters. So I was like, well, I'm going to do that. But then we went to the hospital, and it was closed. And so my wife was like, oh, you can play in that dorky card game tournament if you want to. And I just like threw together 3 decks.
Hang on, she was in labor, and she's
it's like
go win that championship.
No, to go to the hospital, to like you do a
ran home in slow
tour,
motion.
Kingsley. No, you do a tour beforehand, so like you know where the stuff is, and like, oh, here's where you check in. But they were closed, so we didn't have to do that. So I just threw together 3 things. I never played Conquest before. I lost my first game. In the best of 3, I lost the first match. And then I still won, and it was great, and it was fun, and I didn't know what the heck I was doing.
I think you had a sense of the meta.
No, I just made some.
You were playing the best decks besides Burning Rage.
No, I made one deck to piss off Cruel Tech because I didn't know him, but he seemed like a dick. And other than that,
good guess.
Yeah. Other than that, I was playing some things that you created. They worked fine. If you're a new player, I would not be intimidated by Conquest at all. I wouldn't be intimidated by any of those names. Not that like anybody on the top of the leaderboard, by which I mean like. I've seen more people lose Masters because they freak out than anything. Like they panic, and it's a silly card game. It's supposed to be fun. It's enjoyable, and I would really encourage new players to just check it out. Like I worry that one of the barriers to entry is feeling like it's too complicated, or that the people at the top must be good.
Or even that it's being streamed, and maybe someone will see you misplay and
I will make fun of you probably, but I got made fun of.
Well, you're not streaming,
huh?
But well, I mean,
and to further what Vanguard said, my first Masters was 3 points just off of 3 pretty basic. I'm gonna go fast decks. I didn't have anywhere near a full collection, so I just went, well, I will play a lot of cheap creatures 3 times, and that got me 3 points. So it's it's not hard to get into or to do well.
The strongest aggro decks are really, really inexpensive, and you can get them very, very quickly. Almost the day that you start playing, if you commit a couple hours, you can have a very strong aggro deck.
You show me the cards you have, I'll build you an aggro deck that'll beat Dobrasea.
There you go, promise on him. Hold him up. You can hold him to that. And yeah, that's 2 guys as well. First ever Masters champion, first ever Masters, 3 points. I got 2 points for mine, so whatever, show me up, that's cool. Yeah. I mean, 2 points. I was happy with that. That I beat 2 of the 4 people of the supposedly best 16 people at the time. I did get a buy. I'm not gonna lie. I had a buy. I got 1 point. Oh god, I could have lied. I so easily could have lied. But yeah. So we've talked about how you shouldn't be afraid of it enough, really, I think. And more of like, why would you? 1, money. I mean, there's a decent prize pool now, and it'll get bigger as the player base expands. Corona's been like sort of a blessing to the game. I mean, everyone's stuck at home, and TCG, like TCG fans seem to be sort of like really sparsely spread across different games, but this one game doesn't have a lot of exposure. But when TCG players or like hardcore fans do see it, they always really enjoy it, as you mentioned before, Spithead. Especially guys coming from Magic the Gathering, because it's quite similar to that. The owner, Ivko, actually was a former MTG champ, so he was pretty influenced by that. Now, everyone, I want you to give me your funniest and or favorite Masters moment that you were involved in, starting with Spithead. Oh wait.
It's
No,
when I
you'll
heard
get
about Masters.
there. You'll get there, buddy. I know this whole thing's here. We're here to explain it to you.
But
I don't know why
I will say, but like as a new player, like hearing you guys talk about all the different stuff for it, it is in itself like making me be like, oh, I kind of want to go make a deck now so I can go start playing in some of those tournaments, because it does sound pretty
Do you
fun.
want to do that?
Oh man, it's the most fun format. It's the best.
Like,
Easily.
I'm happy to answer Hall's question, and if we have a few more minutes, I'd be more than happy to sit down and think through a deck process with you if that's something you'd be interested in. And then I got to do some work. But Kingsley,
Oh yeah, for sure.
to answer your question, I'll leave the one that you want to talk about, which is, well, I'm assuming your worst memory, but
No.
I'll leave it for you. No, for me it was it was the first one that I won because it was so unexpected, and I really enjoyed and appreciated Fuzz's commentary. So Fuzz, very goofy guy who streams the tournaments, and
Very
at the
entertaining.
beginning he always chooses a favorite and a dark horse. And for some reason, I think because nobody knew who the heck I was, he picked me for that tournament as like the player.
I was the favorite for some reason.
Were you the favorite? Sorry.
I think Drygod made him make me the favorite.
So
The
he
campaign is
watched almost all of my games, which was just very fortunate. It was cool to get a different perspective on my playing, and I brought some ridiculous decks that were off meta that he wasn't
I
expecting.
think everyone enjoyed watching those games.
Yeah, it was really fun. And like when the people I work with, because I've got a team at work, found out that I had played in a dorky card game championship and won it, they then went and watched Fuzz's broadcast, and then they threw me a championship party, and they like made me a trophy, and it was just a cool memory. It was like I still like smile anytime which I occasionally do. Like once a year, I'll be like, I'm gonna watch that Masters again. That was fun, and I'll watch it, and it makes me smile. I get a lot of joy from it.
Nate smiles once a year, just once, no more. That'd be overdoing it. So, Wildblade, do you have a favorite or funny or interesting Masters moment?
There have been a lot of really good ones. The
Nice.
first Masters win was really good. The most recent one was really good. But I think that overall, my favorite moment ever in Masters was in my second Masters. Not my second Masters, pardon me. The second one I won. I'd made it to the semifinal, and I was playing Lyris, and he won the first game, I won the second game. So the final game came down to, I was running a deck called Mono Dominion Control, which is just this glacially slow deck. It was really, really slow. I loved that deck to absolute death. It was really, really good against everything except Rage Rush, which is what Lyris was playing, which is the fastest deck in the game. And so, he's going to win that matchup 95 times out of 100 without even trying. And he got unlucky. I got lucky. I played that match perfectly, and I eked out the win. And just that moment of, after I win that game that I had no business winning, and I go, I'm winning this Masters. I have done the hardest possible thing to do in this game. I beat Rage Rush with Mono Dominion. I am winning.
That is actually nuts. Like that doesn't happen. That's a statistical outlier if I've ever heard one.
Yep.
Wow. Yeah. That's cool. So many to pick from, Nathan. So many. You've been there for all of them. Honestly, I'm really weird. I'm competitive to the point where every single game I have that's incredibly gruelingly hard to win, or like I'll match with someone, and I'll match with someone like PewQ, Vanguard, Wildblade here. The stronger they are, the more I get up and go, fuck yeah, like, and get really excited about the fact that my chances of winning have just decreased significantly. But like I just like playing against the best guys. I mean, even though you don't win a lot, but a grueling game against PewQ, which I won't go into detail because I know I'm the only one who actually likes games like this, was one moment. And then the best moment, it's not for the sorry, it's not for the reason you think, Nate, is when me and Nate faced off in a Masters final. Well, I mean, if you're right, it probably isn't a final, but if there was any game to be considered a final, it would be that one.
No, it should have been a final, but it was not.
But so what happens is sometimes when I think either someone drops or doesn't show up and there's uneven numbers, there can be there's one less round, right?
No, you can just end up with nobody going 4-0.
Yeah, when everybody is 3-1.
Oh, right, of course, yeah. Just so the way like it works out is that basically someone's on 3 at the end and then gets matched with one of the several guys on 2 points, and the winner will always usually have 4 points over the 4 rounds. So Nate was on 3, matched me, was on 2, and we had a fight that he really should have won. Like if we'd replayed with those decks, like yeah, he would have won the rest of the 9 of 10 times if we'd done that. But I just drew amazingly and pulled out some bullshit. Like top deck. I even, just to cap off like both games, the ridiculous bullshit draws, I top decked the winning answer and won, and everyone thought I'd won Masters, like to the point where the guy, this like Fuzz, the commentator, calls me up to give me my winner's interview. So I'm on call on the stream, like for my winner's interview. And he's like, we start talking there, and he's like, the people await their champion. So I get on there, and then he's just like, oh, hang on. Yeah, no, you're actually not the champion. Yeah, Vanguard's won. And I was like, oh, I mean, this is a little awkward, isn't it? So then Nate jumped on the stream with me as well.
It was awkward.
Yeah.
But the thing is, Nate had basically won that tournament in the 3rd round, because he'd played people with high win percentages, and he'd already gotten the 3 points, and I pretty much just spoiled his victory lap. But yeah, it was crazy though, because our first tiebreaker was exactly the same, like 64.4, and then our second tiebreaker was like 0.1 difference or something like that. It was nuts. Yeah, so that was my favorite, just because like my teammate got his 3rd title, and it was a hilarious situation, and he deserved it, despite the fact that I didn't let him think it for a week or 2.
I felt terrible about it. Yeah, it was bad.
Yeah, I knew you would. Anyway, so like, I just want to put it to you, Spirit Ed, like, what have we missed? What do people need to know more about? You mentioned before with the deck building. I want to really say check out spellweaverdb.com for meta decks, and if you want, you know how you mentioned like for bans, it's really interesting to know like what those strong decks are and what to expect in them to figure out which one you want to ban. So we've got lists of those decks, or at least lists of common versions of the decks, and also descriptions of how they're played. So if you want to be in the competitive scene, taking a look at that is really going to help you. Aside from that, though, like, I mean, yeah, I kind of just asking on your perspective here with this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I was very excited when you guys sent me that website, because I didn't know that was a thing, and that is like having that type of resource is actually extremely helpful for new players. We had done for a while something similar on our website for Force of Will, because it was something we realized that resource didn't really exist, and how important that is for new players. So, and that in itself is. And you guys, I didn't even realize that, or I didn't know that the masters were streamed, and being able to watch streams and actually see what higher ranking players, not just what they're playing, but how you play, because that's the next step after deck building. You could have the best deck and totally tank it, and odds are you probably will if you're like, that's a whole probably thing that I assume is here in Spellweaver with other card games, of like, people will see like, oh, this deck is meta, so a lot of people go it, when they honestly would do better at the tournament if they just played their normal deck that they play day in and day out and know like the back of their hand. They would do way better at the tournament with that than actually playing the top deck. So it's seeing a live stream of how decks are played is extremely helpful. So I'm actually really excited to watch
Shameless
see
plug
that.
backward. If you can sleuth, you'll find the website. Keep going, sorry.
No, that was about it. Just having it, like, it seems that like most of the answers, my questions are questions that would come up as you're playing. Yeah.
Yeah. So after this call, Vanguard's going to help spit that out with a strong deck that he can maybe ladder up with or play in those tournaments. Anyone listening to this and wants to do the same, feel free to contact any of us through Discord, really. Not Wildblade, he's probably too busy winning championships. But yeah, again, check out that new players ambassador thread in the Discord, and just hit up any of those guys. I'll be happy to do the same as Nate is about to do here for Spithead. And yeah, I think we can wrap it up here. We'll definitely be doing some editing.
Want to throw in real quick to anybody that might have actually believed Hal. First of all, that's a bad idea. Never do that. But secondly, yes, I'm also very happy to help you out with Dex, regardless of what he says.
Of course you are. That wasn't sarcastic. Yeah.
Cool.
All right.
Good job, team.